Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, because we are on USA Global TV and radio. And I am Ricki McKenna. I am your nutritionist and chef for today. This is my kitchen. It's called Ricki's Kitchen. And today we're going to do a couple of interesting salads with superfoods, what are considered superfoods and greens. And just to let you know, I do have my coffee cups available. This is the one that says take whisks, along with my apron, which Dr. JACALYN encourages me to wear. I'm pretty neat, but I guess you do need an apron in the kitchen. And this is a pretty good sized one. So they are available on my website, which is rickiskitchen.net. And so I invite you to have a look at the goodies that are available there. Cheers. Good morning. That's because we're at noon in Houston, Texas, which is where I am. And today, for the first one, the superfoods, and we're going to use collard greens, which is something that's not found all over the world. But collard greens and kale are in the same family. As a matter of fact, I think I'll just give you the nutritional information on the collard greens and the kale. For example, I'm using something called lacinato kale today, which is a different kind of kale. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with curly kale, which has a leaf that looks almost more like this, which is a collard green leaf, but it's very curly around the edges. But today we're using the lacinato kale because I find it a little less bitter than kale is, normally the curly kale. So nutritionally, raw kale contains 84% water and 90% or 9% carbohydrates, but it does have protein, about 4%. And it's got a teeny tiny bit of fat, just about 1%. It is rich in vitamin K. And if you've been to your doctor lately and the doctor says, well, you need vitamin D, as in David, and you need vitamin K to go with it. Well, there's one of your sources, a food source for vitamin K. It is kale. And when it's raw, it really is good for you. It's about, 100, let me see what 100 grams is. I'm not so good at that. Well, at any rate, I would say it's probably a cup of kale, of raw kale. And it's also rich in vitamins A, C, B6, which is good for carpal tunnel, if anybody's suffering with that, vitamin E, and folate, thiamine, riboflavin, and pantothenic acid. Those are your B vitamins that give you energy. So it's an energizer, and it does contain, and here's the important part about leafy greens, they contain a lot of minerals. And as a nutritionist, I find that a lot of people are more deficient or at least low in minerals than vitamins. And kale and collard greens both contain iron, manganese, calcium, potassium, and phosphorus as well. And what are called carotenoids or phytochemicals are contained in all your leafy greens. And lutein and zeaxanthin are very good for your eyes as well as the rest of your system. So there's kale and why you should take an interest in eating it, whether it's raw or cooked. But raw, it's really a nutritious green. And what I do many times with kale is take it and rip it up into bite-sized pieces and put it in with a regular salad that has lettuce or escarole or romaine, whatever. Just mix your greens together in the salads. Now, collard greens, and here's your collard leaf. as I said, they come in different sizes, but they're lovely as fans when you're in the kitchen and it gets warm, but they're also extremely nutritious. And they contain, interestingly enough, they contain protein, 5.5 grams in I think it's also 1 cup of boiled collard greens. Now, here's an interesting fact about the collard greens. Most greens are more nutritious, and as are many vegetables, when they're raw, before you heat them or cook them in any way. But collard greens, on the other hand, it's very interesting. They contain, the cooking seems to make the vitamins and the minerals more available for you, more what we call bioavailable when you're eating them. So the collard greens contain protein, a teeny bit of fat, carbohydrates, and fiber, 7.6 grams of fiber. And that's less than 1 gram of sugar they have. They have calcium, they have iron, magnesium, and phosphorus. And what I find is if you're not sleeping well, magnesium is one of those minerals that people are usually a little bit low in, and you can find it in a couple of different things, leafy greens for sure, and also in chocolate, although actually it's theobromine in chocolate that helps you stay awake. But chocolate is also rich in, deep, dark chocolate is also rich in magnesium. And so if you're looking for a good source of folate, especially for pregnant women, raw greens are recommended over cooked greens, because the raw greens in particular provide 46 micrograms of folate, where a cup of cooked greens only offers about half that. So now, just for those of you who are spinach fans, as I am, spinach is healthier than collard greens because it has a higher percentage of all those vitamins and minerals and fewer calories. Although in a cup of collard greens, you're getting about 63 calories, and in spinach, you're getting less. I don't really have that here. But spinach provides more vitamin A, beta carotene, great for your eyes, vitamin K as well, B6 and folate, thiamine, riboflavin, all your B vitamins, or many of them, pardon me, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, iron, copper, and zinc, which is another thing that also helps to boost your immune system. So there's your nutritional information for today from Ricky McKenna, the nutritionist. And then we will proceed to go on to our first salad, which is a warm kale, collard, and broccoli salad. Well, now actually this one's just kale and mustard greens. Now, I'll get you to the mustard greens. I don't have all the nutritional information on them, but they do contain a bunch of minerals. And so we're going to take them. First, I'm going to take my collards, because of all the greens, the collards have the most solid leaves. And so when you're making a salad, even though it's going to be warmed, I'm going to cut the stems out first. We do cut the stems out of all the leaves. Voila. Do not throw those away. I just had a smoothie this morning that was absolutely delicious, that contained a whole bunch of collard, kale, mustard green, all the stems that I took out. And you just have to blend it a little bit longer, but they're great. So I'm going to take my collard greens, and if you like, you can actually chop up some of the stems into little pieces and put them with the salad. I'm going to cut them up into bite-sized pieces, just taking them lengthwise. I could chiffonade them, but we're just going to cut them up more into bite-sized pieces because this is a salad and we don't want long pieces of chiffonade hanging out of people's forks. And so what I'm going to do with the collards is take them and put them in the pan with a teeny bit of olive oil, which I have on warm. And mine is an electric range, and it's on low, so it's on warm. I just want to heat them for a couple of minutes. And I'll show you, we'll just spread them out and let them get warmed up. And let's take I'm going to take my greens and save them over here. The stems. Now I'm going to take my kale and also cut that up because we're going to warm all of these and we're going to actually massage them, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if you've ever massaged a green leaf in your life, but you're going to learn. So here we go. I'm chopping that into bite-sized pieces as well. And I'm going to remove the thick stems. But I happen to think that when you get the lacinato kale is a little less, the stems are a little lighter than many of the stems in the other greens. So I'm going to cut the big heavy parts of the stems out. And again, we're going to save those for my smoothie. And let's see, this one. And if they don't come off, you just rip them off. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to cut my kale up into the same kind of bite-sized pieces, or just roughly tear it. It's easy to tear. And I'm going to keep an ear open for what's going on the range with the collard greens. They're beginning to wilt. And this is what we want with this salad. This is a wilted salad, which means it's not cooked. It's just really warmed. So I'm going to take my kale and put it in there for now. And then I'm going to take my mustard greens. Now the mustard greens, of all the greens, are the lightest. They're the lightest and they're almost translucent. But don't let that fool you because the mustard greens have flavor. I'm going to cut out the stems. And what I find with the mustard greens, and I didn't start eating mustard greens until about 6 months ago. I discovered them through one of my clients who was born in the South. And since I was born in the North, in New York to be specific, I had no idea about mustard greens. However, since I've moved here, there are a lot of interesting vegetables in the South that people consume that we didn't consume in the North. So I'm not sure if you can get mustard greens wherever you are in the world, but they may have another name, as a matter of fact. So it's very interesting. But what I find with the mustard greens, as I say, they're very light. They're almost filmy. But the flavor is absolutely amazing. They are very piquant. They are sometimes very strongly sharp. So in a salad, when you're putting them in, they add an incredible amount of flavor. And you can also saute them as well as using them raw in a salad. So I'm using 2 of these. I will post the recipes with Dr. JACALYN. It'll be posted on USA Global TV. So we have all 3 of these now. And my collard greens, I'm going to check on those and make sure that these are wilting. Let me just switch cameras so you can see what I'm talking about as far as wilting. We're not really cooking them. Okay. Here's the engineering part of me. Let's see if I've got the right one. There it is. There we go. What I want you to see is that you have to get them all on the bottom of the pan so that they do start to warm. And I'm going to just turn the heat up just a tad so that we get them to wilt a little bit more because, as I say, they are the thickest of the greens that we're using. Perfect. Okay, and there is just a touch of olive oil in there. So now I'm going to add my other greens. And again, we're not really cooking them, we're just warming them so that they wilt. And if you've ever taken spinach, raw spinach, and put it into a pan and covered it with just a little bit of liquid, usually I use water, we'll just let them wilt just a little bit. So we're heating them up so that they get to a point of wilting. And let's go back. I'm back. As I say, you're heating them so that they just get to the point of wilting. In the meantime, what we're going to do is take 4 leaves of basil, or a few more actually. This is part of the dressing that goes in, and I've got Thai basil, which is quite spicy. So I'm using the Thai basil. I'm going to chop that up so I can put that in my dressing. And actually, it gets tossed. Oh, yum. It gets tossed right onto the salad, so it becomes part of it. There we go. And we're going to take a little, this one. Here we go. Let's see. We're going to toss that back in the little dish and add some olive oil. And make sure that my greens are not burning. We're just wilting, remember? We want them to be soft and warm. So, here we go. And I'll take my olive oil and my little whisk, if I can find it. Here we go. Let's see, we need about, oh my goodness, just a teaspoon. I'm going to add a little bit more because there's a lot of greens in there. So we've got the olive oil and a clove of garlic, which we will crush. Here's my garlic. And remember my tip about garlic. If you're going to get it and peel it or buy it freshly peeled, put it in a glass jar. And actually what I did here was I took a baggie and I cut out the double piece of the baggie and use it as a liner so that the wonderful aroma of the garlic stays in the jar, but not in your refrigerator. I'm going to crush 1 clove and add it. I'm going to use my garlic press today. I've been missing it, so I'm going to use it. And actually, it calls for crushed garlic, so that's what we're doing. There we go. And it's really easy. Yep, that's plenty. And I can hear my leaves starting to crackle, so I'm going to run over here and turn the range off and let them just sit in the pan so that they wilt. If you've ever made a soup where you've added basil or something like Swiss chard, where the leaves just wilt, this is exactly what you want them to do here. You don't want them to really cook. So we've got our olive oil, garlic, and fresh basil, and we're going to add a little bit of salt. And not a lot, because remember that all those wonderful greens contain a lot of natural salt. So we don't want to put a lot of extra salt in. And pepper. We've got sizzle going over there. All right. Now, a little bit of cayenne. I'm going to just sprinkle, maybe, let's see if this is a sprinkle top. It's not. So we're going to just take, I'm going to take the end of my whisk, actually, or the end of my knife, and just top. When you don't have a sprinkle top, use the top of the jar. And I've got about 1/8 of a teaspoon in there of cayenne pepper, so we get a little flavor. And let's see, give it a whisk. It's quite thick. And what I'm going to do with this, let's see if there's anything else that has to go in there. Nope, I think we have it all. We have the kale, the collards, the mustard greens, And we've got our olive oil, and let's see if we got a little lemon juice. Yes, 2 teaspoons of fresh lemon juice. And I have my favorite lemon squeezer, and if you don't have one of these, they're the best gadgets in the world because you don't have to sit there and pinch your fingers together and try to get every little bit of juice out of a piece of lemon or lime or orange if you're going to use any other citrus. So, and I'm looking for only 2 teaspoons. So what we're going to do is not really drown this in a dressing, but just lightly dress it. And I'm going to take my teaspoon, just for fun and measure. It's 1, and that's perfect. And I happen to like lemons, so we'll just add whatever's left in here. There we go. And I did use about 1/4 of a medium-sized lemon. So we have our lemon juice, and as you can see, I'm going to bring this up to the camera. Don't know if you can see that. Let me do it over here. Wait a minute. We're going to dress it over there. I think it'll work pretty well. Okay, here we go. You can see that it's not a lot of dressing. It's maybe 2 tablespoons, maybe. And I'm going to take my dressing and remove my greens that have beautifully wilted, as you can see. And we're going to pour them back into that lovely bowl. And now we're going to dress it. And I'll get back over here, because what I'm going to do over there in that lovely warmed pan is put the rest of the collard greens that we're going to use in our other salad. So I'm taking my dressing, which is cool. There we go. And we're just going to mix that up, and you can see it's shrunk quite a bit. This actually makes 2 lovely servings of the warm salad. There we go. Oh, does that smell good? It's an interesting combination of lovely aromas from all the greens and the dressing. And we will just put some of that on the plate to serve. Just mix it up thoroughly so that everything gets coated. And there we have a lovely serving of our warm superfood salad, number 1. And right now, I'm going to give it a taste. I tell you, it smells absolutely marvelous. Lovely. You can taste everything that's in there. All the dressing comes through, the wonderful aroma from the garlic and the basil. It's absolutely yummy. Now, number 2 salad, and we're going to save our whisk. And this one consists of cool collard greens. However, since I find the collard greens are a little on the tough side, and this one gets to go in with mustard greens and broccoli, I'm going to take my collard greens first and do what I did with the other. I'm going to cut out, first I'm going to cut the stems out. And as you can see, that's an easy job. And let's see. They usually come out very easily. And I've got 4 leaves. Just for those of you who are listening, I have 4 pretty good sized leaves of the collard greens. And we're taking all the stems out again and add to my collection for smoothies. So that's going to be yummy tomorrow. And of course, you do refrigerate those. Now I'm going to take the collards and I'm going to cut it up so that it warms quickly, but it's also into the bite-sized pieces that we had, same as the warm salad, but we're going to warm this and give it a little time to cool while I cut up the rest of the vegetables. So I'm cutting them into bite-sized pieces again, and I'm just going to toss it into the pan. It's a non-stick pan, so that I really don't need to put any oil in it, but there's still the residue of the oil from the other. So this is going to be plenty to help warm it, and the pan is warm already. And so what I'm trying to do again is just wilt the leaves just slightly so that they're a little easier to eat. Now you don't have to do this step. This is one of those steps that I prefer to do because I find that I like the kale, or excuse me, the collards, when they're just a little softer, they get quite chewy. So in the meantime, we do have our broccoli, and we're going to take the broccoli and cut it into small pieces, small bite-sized pieces. I've got just the florets. Normally I take broccoli, now I will buy the whole head with the long stem, and I take the stem and I usually cut the stem, I skin it, which you can do, which makes it infinitely easier to eat, and then I cut it into little chips, so we have broccoli chips. And they're usually little, they're wonderful for dipping or just munching. So then I'm going to take my broccoli and I'm going to cut the stems short. So we just have smaller pieces to go in the salad that are more like bite-sized pieces. And I'm cutting the bigger ones into fourths so that we have small bite-sized pieces. I'm just going to toss them right into the bowl. And there we go. And you can break them off and do it as you like. If you're making this salad for more than 2 people, I would use the whole head of the broccoli. But right now we're just doing a serving. So it'll be 2 to 4 servings. So I'm only cutting part of the head. But as I say, and it will keep pretty well in the refrigerator overnight, at least, even with the dressing on it. Normally I put salads in the refrigerator without dressings because they will stay longer and stay fresher. But this one sits in it, marinates beautifully in the dressing. So I'm going to take the rest of my broccoli, and I'm going to take my mustard greens. And again, we're going to remove the stems. Now you can chop off the stems on the mustard greens. They're a lot more tender than the stems of the collard greens or the kale. However, what I have found in my tour through the South and mustard greens is that, oh my goodness, that piquant, biting flavor really gets concentrated in the stems. So if you really want something that's got lots of flavor and will wake your mouth up, I'm just going to take the tops, the skinny parts, and cut it into little tiny bite-sized pieces or less. And I'm going to toss that in with the salad just for fun, just to give it a little more life. I've got maybe a tablespoon, and I'll sprinkle that in there so that somebody's going to get that, and it's going to be really mouth-wateringly refreshing. So now I'm going to do the same thing with my mustard greens, and just to show you, you can rip them. If you prefer, instead of cutting them, you can take them and rip pieces, bite-sized pieces, and scatter them around. That's fine. We'll just do one. As I say, this leaf is a little bit less, it's almost filmy. It's really pretty. And it does have, if you've ever had Dijon mustard or even Coleman's mustard, it's spicy. So that's where the whole plant that creates mustard seed, or mustard seeds create the plant, is really spicy, and it's fun. This adds a lot of flavor to different things. Here we go. There. And now, I'm going to mix that up before I add, well, just mix up the broccoli and the mustard greens. Remember, this is a cold salad. And now I'm going to take a scallion and cut both the green and the white parts of it into diagonal pieces. And scatter that through the salad. And you don't want pieces of finger in there, so I'm going to stop right there. Ta-da! As I said, the white and the green. So now we have the mustard greens, the broccoli, and the scallions. And now we're going to take some red pepper. You can use red, orange, yellow, green pepper, whatever you like. And actually, I'm going to cut just little pieces of the red pepper in and reserve some of the other for later. I'm going to cut this into little tiny bite-sized pieces, or dices, as we say. And I just want a little bit of the pepper in there, almost just for color, rather than a lot of taste. Now, back to my collards. I'm going to take it off the heat now and just let it sit in here and wilt so it softens a little bit. So I'm going to turn this off. And if you're not serving the salad right away, you can certainly put that in the refrigerator. Just put them into a little dish and put them in the refrigerator and let them cool down. Or you can do what I do and make the salad and then put the whole thing in the refrigerator and let it cool down. So, depends on if you're going to serve it right away. So I've got about half a cup of the red pepper, which I'm putting in there. And we have 3 beautiful Campari tomatoes that we're going to add. I'm going to cut those up and add them to the salad. You can skin your tomatoes, especially if you have some problems with tomatoes, with arthritis or anything like that, because tomatoes are a nightshade vegetable, and sometimes they cause people problems. But if you skin them and seed them, then you really shouldn't have any problem with them. And I'm just going to cut the little tomatoes because fortunately we have no problem with that in our house. And so I'm just cutting them up into little bite-sized pieces and adding them to the rest of my ingredients. And one thing I noticed this morning, I didn't put my music on. So I'm sorry for those of you who enjoy the jazz, but it's not playing today. And here we go. Just roughly chopping the tomato up so it gets in there, and it's so pretty. Okay. All right. Let's just wipe that up a little bit. Juicy tomatoes. And let's give this a toss. Isn't that pretty? You can see that. And if you want to, you can add some more scallions, or even slice up. I would use some red onion in here, just very thin, tiny pieces of it. That would be good. And now we are going to make our dressing. I have some of the dressing that I made yesterday, so I'm going to add to that a little more olive oil. And I think we'll just, that's about a tablespoon. And our salt and pepper. We like pepper. And again, this is a lot of greens, so you don't need a lot of salt. I'm using about 1/4 teaspoon. Okay. And we're going to add a little bit of oregano. About 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano. So since I don't have my 1/4 teaspoon, we're just going to measure it. Oops. And if you like a little bit more oregano, fine, put some more in. That's actually closer to a 1/2 teaspoon, and we like oregano. And it happens to be pretty good in this salad. Now I've got dried basil this time. You can use fresh. And again, it's about 1/4 or 1/2 teaspoon. Let's see what this actually calls for. 1/4 teaspoon. We love basil. And of course, we have lemon juice. Let's see what else. Garlic powder. Actually, I prefer granulated garlic to garlic powder. It doesn't fluff up and get all over the place. And it has far more flavor, has a little better consistency as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm using my granulated garlic. And since we do like garlic, and it calls for 1/2 teaspoon, we're definitely putting in 1/2 teaspoon of garlic. And maybe even a little sprinkle. But you can see that didn't go fluffy all over the place like garlic powder tends to. And let's give this a whisk. And now, the finishing touch. And this is what's interesting about this dressing. This one calls for 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. So we've got our lemon squeeze. Oh yeah, I love the way that works. And that's a teaspoon. So I'm going to get a tablespoon just to show you how it works. Here we go. Yep, that's close to a tablespoon from just that little 1/4 of a lemon. So you can probably consider using a whole lemon in this if that's what you like. I'm just going to make sure that gets every little bit of juice. There we go. I hate waste. And now I'm going to take, I have a fairly small, medium-sized lemon. And I'm going to cut in half. And we'll see how much juice we get out of half of this one. Because we need 2 more tablespoons officially. And as I said earlier, if there's something that you like better than other things, you're more than welcome to change the proportion a little bit to what you like. Absolutely beautiful. There we have our 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. So you know that this dressing is going to make this rather lemony, which is yummy. And let me get my collards off. There we go. They have stopped cooking, but they have, interestingly, this time they crisped up a little bit. Let's see if I can show you how they look. They're still wonderfully leafy, and we've released a lot of the wonderful nutrition in here. Remember I told you that the warm greens, in this particular case, the collard greens particularly, make it more available, the nutrients more available once it's heated. So now I'm going to toss these 2 guys. Let's see. Here we go. So we have the collards, the broccoli, tomatoes, red pepper, or green pepper of your choice. But the red pepper is really pretty, or orange pepper, as it were. And we're going to dress it. And this, again, is the cold salad. So I would, if you've done what I just did with the collards and warmed it so that it softens a bit, I would suggest that you take that and put it in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes to cool it down. And let's see, I'm going to use about 3 tablespoons of our dressing. Now, if you're going to serve this several hours from now, I would put it in the refrigerator without the dressing, but we're going to eat it almost immediately. That's closer to 4. And so I'm going to toss it in there, and there we go. And while I'm doing this, I want to remind you about my book. If you look behind me, you can see it. It is called Yes, You Can, Eat Well and Eat Right, and Find the Joy of Cooking. And since I'm a devotee of food, I really, truly believe that. And we had a book signing about a week ago, in which we sold 11 books. And what's interesting is I'm getting wonderful feedback on it. It's really more than a cookbook. So I want you to take a look on Amazon. Go to Amazon and look for Yes, You Can, Eat Well and Eat Right, and enjoy, find the joy of cooking. It's really neat, and I really did write it. And actually, it's written in such a way that it's very, very easy to read, and people are finding that there are pages, there are blank pages in here where you can do your own notes. There's some places available for your notes and your comments, and it's really kind of a fun read. There's food history. There's some pictures of my grandkids when they were really little, and every one of them has grown up at this point to be teenagers. Well, just about. One's left. He's going to be 12 tomorrow. And I find that every single one of them, because both of my children cook and have fed them real food since they were tiny, tiny babies. And they all absolutely love food. They're vegetable eaters, which is a complaint that I sometimes hear from clients about their younger children and their older children. And if you start them off on real food, they usually enjoy life much better. And frankly, they enjoy better health, because I am totally a promoter of real food and not so much prepared and packaged foods. Yes, there are some foods like tomatoes that are wonderful canned, but I really prefer to use fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and herbs most of the time. So with that, we have our cool mustard green and broccoli salad with tomatoes. And we have our warmed mustard green, collard greens, and kale salad. And I wish you a wonderful weekend. Please take a look on Amazon for the book. As I said, it's Yes, You Can, Eat Well and Eat Right. And there's also on my website, you'll find the apron, which is absolutely says take whisks. And so does the cup. So if you look for these, and I invite you to take a look on the website, rickiskitchen.net, and use your imagination when you're cooking. Let's see if we can. Here we go. I hope I've been on screen all time. And for those of you on radio, I welcome you to take a look on rickiskitchen.net. Find yourself a cup, find the book, find an apron, and enjoy cooking as much as I do. And enjoy watching USA Global TV and listening on radio. So with that, Dr. JACALYN and everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Tune in to USA Global TV and radio, and hearty appetite.